I'm John Fraser, a conservation psychologist with New Knowledge Organization. I'm going to be talking about collective action and the psychology behind how people choose to engage in environmental change. When we think about collective action, we're really looking at small groups changing the way they do something and then helping others come to understand that with them. When we think about the importance of collective action versus individual behavior, we also think at the scale that is necessary for environmental change. We use terms in psychology like significant environmental behaviors, behaviors which not only solve a small problem, but have large-scale impacts beyond that action. In the 1990s, it became apparent that not all environmental actions were the same. Some have bigger impacts and make a greater contribution to protecting the environment on which we depend. Sociologists named Tom Dietz and a fellow named Paul Stern and their colleagues, both at the National Research Council and at Michigan State University, developed an understanding of values, beliefs, and norms in order to describe what is necessary to engage in public sphere behaviors, individual behaviors, all of the things that people do to cause environmental change. They defined them in 4 categories. Significant environmental behaviors that are individual, you do them at home. Things you might do in your home, like turn off the lights. Public sphere behaviors, which are things you do outside, for example, taking your recycling bin out and putting it on the street. They also talked about something we don't tend to talk a lot about to this day, and that's actions within organizations. The kinds of behaviors people engage in where others within an organization can also implement the change. And then the 4th one that we hear a great deal about is environmental activism, when people are involved in social change by yelling and using conflict strategies to raise awareness, attention, or really bring focus to a problem. Often, activism is described as the environmental challenge. But activism can take many forms. The real difference in activism is that it is slightly against a status quo, what people are doing, which brings us back to values, beliefs, and norms. So what's a norm? A norm is really like normal. It's the root of normal. What do we expect other people to do? A normative behavior is a behavior that we expect is common within this group. So when you grow up in a house and mom always threw the plastic away but recycled the bottles, it is normal. It is a norm within the family to throw the plastic away but recycle the bottle. So we enact norms. And if we do something different, we recognize we have to make a change. Now, what's a belief? A belief is an understanding or an expectation about how an action or something you do will result in a change. Belief can lead to an expectation that if you engage in a normal behavior, something will occur, and if you engage in a different behavior, a different response will happen. Beliefs are expectations. They are assumptions or a set of thoughts about how we expect something we do will result in an outcome or a change. So we believe that if we recycle, if we place our recycling in the recycling bin, that object that could have gone to landfill will get used for something else. We believe that when we compost, we're actually feeding the earth because we're building nutrition. Values are organized sets or systems. So things we value, for example, the nature around us. We may value cleanliness. We like things to be neat and clean. We mow our lawn. Or we value things which are productive, and we like to leave the leaves on the ground so that they have a chance to rot and feed the earth. These are kinds of values. Stern and Dietz together worked out this issue of values, beliefs, norms as a theory. VBN theory it's often referred to, where they describe your environmental values lead to beliefs about your actions and your understanding of what is a normal behavior, what is normative behavior. And they argued that those will predict whether you will engage in an individual behavior that you do at home, you do in private, whether you will engage in a public behavior, whether you will work within an organization to make change, or whether you are going to be activist and try to agitate for a social change to reconcile your values and your beliefs with the way the system is working, the way government works. So the psychology here is the mental process for ensuring that your values are being delivered upon. Now, my work focused on collective identity. In fact, it works in parallel to the values, beliefs, norms theory. But my work has looked at the role of the group on those outcomes. So what we find through our studies is that when individuals are within a community, they understand what the norms for behavior are, or the social expectation. And if they receive acceptance within that group, then they are likely to behave as the group behaves. So if a group is engaged in an environmental behavior and someone wants to join that group, they will engage in the behavior whether they believe it or not. They will adopt the values of love, affection, and affirmation as the values that matter to them the most. And they will behave like a good member of the group. They judge themselves on, are they acting like a good group member? So they may not have the same environmental values as the group, but when the group welcomes them into their fold, the group helps shape their understanding of what is expected behavior. So they might attend a rally. They might show up at an event and be there acting as others who are either being activist or just really happy about something happening. And they're doing it in part to receive acceptance from the group. What we see about that value, belief, norm theory and the collective identity theory in parallel to values, beliefs, norms theory is both have to do with values. In one case, you value an environmental factor. In the collective identity side, you value the acceptance within the group. The beliefs, if you value the environmental issue, will lead you to want an environmental thing to occur and believe that your behavior will result in a change. If we're talking about collective identity, then your behavior, you believe that if you behave like the group, you will find acceptance within the group. So now we go to the norms. In both cases, the norms can be talking about how you believe the community will act in a given situation, and your actions are as you expect a good member to act. These lead in both cases to individual, public, organizational, or activism behaviors, all of which can be environmentally significant. What's exciting when you put the two together is that if you conform to the group and you start to engage in environmental behaviors, you start to adopt the norms of the community, and we find that your beliefs and values start to grow. So we don't always need to start from the environmental values to have environmentally significant behaviors. And if we recognize those paths, we can understand that the more welcoming and accepting groups are of people with different views, the more likely we are to have environmentally significant behaviors. Now, where this gets really exciting is when we look at groups who are actively trying to make positive change in their community. When people do individual behaviors, they can tend to be satisfied with what they've done, and they don't necessarily go further. But when they engage in public behaviors, they recognize that that is central to who they are. So what we find is that public sphere behavior is one of those places where we encourage not only those within our community, but people who respect us and value us to join us in the behavior. And the one that we would really love to see more, the one that we believe people can be most effective, is when their environmentally significant behaviors are helping groups to reconcile those groups' values and goals with environmental behaviors. What we're coming to recognize is that when people work within organizations and cause change, for example, where a company sources good, sustainable materials, when a company makes choices about its real estate, when a collective like a church or a temple or a mosque decides that they are going to change the kinds of behaviors about what they're purchasing, what they're doing, and what they're investing in, then we will start to see social change at a large scale that can really be significant in our environmental actions as a society. Thank you.